Radical feminism really is the occult, smashing the patriarchy, and free love. And those are things that no Catholic can embrace. No, I don't think we should be supporting this Barbie film. You know, it's an amazing piece of propaganda. It's incredible how many ways and times this idea of smashing the patriarchy is invoked, really, in the movie. And what is our church? It's the patriarchy. It's a patriarchy. Our husbands are part of the patriarchy. The military is part of the patriarchy. So anyway, I think it's, a really incredible grasping at trying to get a new generation of women involved in feminism because, the older generation is aging out. And this has been, it seems like it's working. It's a really successful way to use a lot of pink and beautiful women and, nostalgic storyline to get women to start paying attention to what they think is a bad thing, which is the patriarchy and being mothers and being, raising children.
What is the origins of this modern woke feminist movement?
This is something I go into my book. I mean, it's a long, long story. It goes all the way back to the late 1700s and really was developed in a way during the 1800s. You go to the 1900s and suddenly feminism starts aligning itself with communism. And then you get to the 1960s and then feminism is aligning itself with the new left and with all of the masterminds behind the woke movement, behind critical theory, behind what became critical race theory. So it's pretty amazing just when you start seeing the whole pedigree and really realize that from the very beginning, it's been very toxic and the whole effort has been to manipulate women. And they have been incredibly successful at it. In fact, that's one of the things I talk about most is we haven't really been offered women an alternative to think about themselves as women other than this main narrative. And that's one of the reasons I've dove into the Theology of Home blog that I write is to provide a visual and an intellectual way just for women to start thinking of themselves outside of this feminist pattern, because what they've really wanted us to think of ourselves is as men and not good men. So how do we start thinking of ourselves as women again? And I think that's the real challenge that certainly faces the Catholic Church because, we have the answers to these questions with all of the saints, all the theology, Mariology, all of these things provide the resources that we need to understand this. It's just a matter of first identifying that there's a real enemy out there that has done incredible damage to our church and to civilization.
How many Catholic women do you think are very much persuaded by this modernist feminist ideology?
I think it's a huge number. There's 35 million Catholic women in the United States. And then you have also just an incredible confusion from organizations that call themselves feminist and Catholic. And I don't have a problem with people calling themselves feminist as long as they're very clear with, who they are. But that doesn't happen very often. We don't see a definition because radical feminism really is the occult, smashing the patriarchy, and free love. And those are things that no Catholic can embrace. So we have to be very diligent in terms of defining what we mean. And of course, John Paul II has written on feminism and was very explicit about it and drew from scriptural and theological roots. And, there's a way in which he was obviously trying to salvage the word and to sort of rebuild it from the inside. But I don't think that that's been, overall very effective within or inside or outside the church. So I think that that's the real challenge is to first recognize that, we may have the best of intentions by calling ourselves a feminist and thinking that we're just being pro-woman, but it's not really, there's a lot more baggage to the title than we realize. And we just haven't done a great job of filling in the blanks for people. For them to understand what they're getting involved in. So, yeah, I think there's a lot of intellectual tangling that has happened that we need to help women really see clearly what the ideology is. And then from there, be very specific about defining themselves either with it or, clearly against it, or just drop the word altogether. I think also it's a highly effective way to navigate that. They just have no idea. They've never been really offered an alternative that makes sense or that's loud enough for them to hear. I mean, we don't have a single women's magazine. There's not even a conservative women's magazine other than maybe Joanna Gaines, but you're not going to get any of this kind of beauty out of those. Everything has been directed at us in a certain way to believe one narrative. So, yeah, I have an incredible amount of sympathy for the situation because we've been so brainwashed for, 50 years on this topic. another problem that we have, and a huge hole that we need to start filling, is to just recognize that entertainment and magazines and fashion and, books, all of that, these are not unimportant things, that these are the way in which women absorb information, and we're just not there. We're not in that place where we're filling that gap. And it's just fascinating to see how much it's locked up by the feminist movement and the feminist ideology. Look at the last 50 years. What have we said good that is good about being a woman? Even Barbie is she's a plastic reflection of what, this idealization of womanhood. But she doesn't have a family. She doesn't, this isn't an organic and great reflection of what real womanhood looks like. And it's funny, even in the film, there's this character named Midge, who's pregnant Barbie, and they keep mentioning how pregnant Barbie has been discontinued. And then there's the opening scene, of course, where we've got these little girls who are beleaguered and sad and, impoverished, and they've got these baby dolls that they're playing with. And it's actually pretty disturbing because they take these dolls and they see Barbie, and they take their own dolls and they start smashing the heads in of them. They're just destroying these baby dolls. And so when you start looking at it all of a piece, you start realizing, like, this is incredibly strong propaganda against the idea of motherhood. And, it makes perfect sense. This is, again, from the very beginning, feminism has been asking the question, how do we help women, but how do we help them become like men? The question hasn't been, how do we help them become better women as women? So it's very easy to see this trajectory going to this point where really this is the height of it, is this idea of transgenderism, where women don't want to be women anymore. They want to change their bodies. So, we've changed everything else about womanhood. Why not go the full distance and actually try and do it biologically now that we've got the technology for it?
What is the role of Our Lady in overcoming this woke ideology?
Yeah, well, I think that's, just an amazing question, because she really is just the model of womanhood and of really seeing what women ought to be like. I mean, the woke movement really is stirred, the engine behind it and the power that it has is based off of resentment and bitterness. And that is something that, if anybody had a reason to be bitter or resentful, it's Our Lady, as she's, standing at the foot of the cross watching her son be crucified. And I think that that's just not a Christian virtue. It's not something that Christianity has ever embraced. And, I think it's incredibly hard to process that when we feel like we do have things to be bitter or resentful over. But that's where feminism gets its power, because it makes women into victims. And Our Lady, her son was the perfect victim. She could claim victimhood, but she doesn't. So I think that she offers us a way forward. I mean, certainly in a mental, moral imagination kind of way, but also just in the reality of her motherhood and what she wants to do for us in our lives directly as our spiritual mother.
Did you like that video? It's okay. You can admit it. It's perfectly fine. Hey, we cover the big stories of our day, from inside the church to outside the church to all points in between, and we do it from a Catholic perspective. It's called A Catholic Take. It's a radio program Monday through Friday. We live stream it right here on this channel, by the way, so make sure to subscribe, like, and share. We would be very grateful to you. And don't forget, you're going to want to watch this video right here because you don't want to miss anything.